Worst politician of the year.
Rishi Sunak.
I can't even really remember him being Prime Minister now.
I'd say Rachel Reeves, worst politician of the year.
Really?
I think she's misjudged a lot of things politically.
Political moment of the year.
You could see the raindrops flicking off his suit jacket.
Trump at the debate.
When Trump was shot, surely that's the moment of the year.
Before you watch today's episode, we want to remind you that tickets are on sale for the Newsagents live shows with HSBC UK. We're kicking off our tour at the Birmingham Symphony Hall on February the 17th. Then we're off to the Bridgewater Hall in Manchester on February the 24th. And finally, the Usher Hall in Edinburgh on March the 11th. Head over to Global Player to get your tickets for any of these dates, and the link will be in the description below. We are so excited to see all of you there.
Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
Exit poll is predicting a Labour landslide.
These numbers are astonishing.
They have chosen Labour, and they have chosen the leadership of Keir Starmer.
I'm fed up of performance art politics. I've had enough of it.
Reform here as well look absolutely thrilled.
A stonking win for Nigel Farage.
We're coming for Labour, be in no doubt about that.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
And we are hearing reports that shots have been fired at this President Trump rally.
It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
We have our first poll closures of the night. A presidential candidate needs 270 votes to win the White House. Now, results for these states will be coming in throughout the night.
Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this.
Well, what a year it's been. As Lenin definitely didn't say, there are some years where decades happen, and then there's 2024, where a load happens. But soundly, surely, it's nearly done. And this is our last regular show of the year, but fear not, a few specials to come, of which more later. But first, before we get there, we thought we would inevitably take a look back before throwing forward with some special guests at the year that was. The rise of Starmer, the fall of Sunak, Trump Mark II, the good, the bad, and the sopal. What did we learn? What did we get wrong? What might be the politics to come? Who were the newsagents' winners, losers, and downright weirdos of 2024? Welcome to the Newsagents Awards of the Year. It's Lewis.
It's Natasha.
It's Aggie.
Back once again for the second time in a week by absolutely no popular demand whatsoever.
That's not true. I've had loads of good feedback.
LBC's very own Woodward and Bernstein, Aggie Chambre, and Natasha Clark.
Thank you so much for having us back.
That's quite all right. Well, the boomers are away, so
there
was no choice.
It's Christmas. there was, in fact, no choice. No, they're away. It's very, very important. They need a nice long Christmas holiday. They need a good lie down. They've had a very hectic social.
What's their excuse today?
They've been dining with various minor royals all week, and you know what? The debonnaire gets to you in the end. So, in their stead, we're going to be talking about the year that was 2024. That was, of course, you just heard some of the weirder moments of the political year from 2024, and we thought we'd do this by doing something which is, I think, getting up there in terms of prestige with the Golden Globes, the Pulitzers, the Witch Awards, all that kind of stuff. Do they do awards? I don't know. These are the newsagents. They do. Good year. Yeah. The newsagents' very own prizes of the year for 2024.
Are we giving out prizes?
We'll send them something. We'll send them a few copies of John's book, maybe some live show tickets. By the way, on live show tickets, remember, if you are looking for a late Christmas present, remember to buy tickets for the newsagents live on stage with HSBC UK, and the tour dates, as you know, Birmingham Symphony Hall, Monday the 17th of February, Manchester Bridgewater Hall, Monday the 24th of February, and Edinburgh Usher Hall, Tuesday the 11th of March. Now, is that not something to look forward to?
That was an absolutely seamless plug.
It was absolutely seamless. You can get them on Global Player. Now, first one, Politician of the Year. Who are our candidates for Politician of the Year team?
Well, I mean, Nigel Farage's comeback, we can't really ignore that. I know that a lot of people are going to say that's a really easy choice.
Right, that's half the listeners gone.
But as a monumental moment in British politics, like when he came onto that stage and said, yes, I am coming back, I'm now the reform leader, that was a pretty big moment. And I don't think anybody in Westminster was really quite expecting it to unfold like it was. Whether he's been enough for Politician of the Year, maybe not. But comeback of the year, I'd say. That's not on our list.
Well, it depends. No, that's not. Don't invent categories.
Sorry.
Right?
Okay.
I suppose it depends. I mean, it's entirely possible, right, that we end up looking back at the 2024 election and deciding that basically nothing, not all of the hilarious stuff that some of which we just heard, Sunak in the rain, all that sort of stuff, D-Day, whatever we might talk about. But actually the moment really wasn't even necessarily the result, which was huge, but it was Farage getting back into the race, right, which we forget, was not preordained. In fact, we got about 2 weeks into the campaign before we actually did it.
I know, and we sort of had this moment thinking maybe Rishi Sunak has pulled an absolute blinder by calling the election when he did, because maybe Nigel Farage is actually not ready, the party isn't ready, and maybe, Reform would have been in a better state if he had called it later down the line. We obviously don't know. But yeah, I think we may look back at that moment. I was just listening to those clips, though. It was funny listening to him make that speech and say, I've changed my mind, I'm back, because he said, watch this space. Reform, yeah, you were just here yesterday. Reform will get more votes than the Conservatives at this general election. And they actually didn't even close. So I do think it is we shouldn't forget the fact that he does talk a really, really good game. So when he's saying, we're going to replace the Conservative Party, he might not.
So actually, let's take this head on, right? Because every time we talk about Farage, I'm sure you get this as well. You always get messages from people saying, why do you talk so much about Farage? And why aren't you talking more about the Greens?
Because he is one of the most influential politicians in British
politics. But then it's circular, isn't it? Because then they criticise us for saying, yeah, but you've made him influential.
Oh, I don't think so. I think he's got that there are some politicians that have that magic sparkle dust. Boris Johnson was one. Nigel Farage is another. That just, they can capture the public. They can deliver a speech. They are good campaigners. They're good speakers. And they just have something that other politicians just don't have. It's just something that makes them a little bit magic, a little bit likeable. And I think, Nigel's got that.
I think both things can be true. I think it is possible to talk something into existence, and I think the fact that we focus and give a lot of focus to Nigel Farage probably does do that to a certain extent. But I also completely agree with Tash that, if you compare a speech by Nigel Farage and a speech by Keir Starmer, the speech by Nigel Farage is probably going to be more entertaining. He's speaking, you want to turn the volume up on the telly. It is more entertaining, and there is something about him that sort of is stardusty, I suppose.
Well, also, my answer to that as well is, when people sometimes say, why don't you talk about the Greens more?
Who is the leader of the Green Party?
Well, they've got several.
Adrian Ramsey.
Well, yeah, and Carla Denyer.
Yes.
There you go. Politicians of the Year. No, they're both Green Leaders of the Year. Well, that's that category gone. No, but my answer to that is Greens, be better. Be better in terms of, say what you want about Farage and Reform and the rest of them, and you can dislike their politics, whatever, but they are very, very good at knowing how to get themselves into the news and being mischievous and being available and getting themselves into the story. So even just this week, what's the example? We talk about the Chinese spy story, which on the face of it has absolutely nothing to do at all with Farage. But who's the politician everybody talking about who might name him under parliamentary privilege? It's Nigel Farage, right? So they're just really, really good at playing the game. And you can then be listening to this and say, well, that's you being played. But it's a reciprocal thing. And ultimately, just if you're a player of the game, you can't be afraid of just getting down and dirty a little bit. If you want to be insurgent, you have to be better at playing insurgency politics, right?
I don't think that the Green Party have, arguably had any sort of impact.
Any moment?
No. What was their moment? What speeches do you remember from the Greens or the Liberals? Arguably Ed Davey had a very good year. Politician of the Year for Ed Davey, maybe. He obviously has taken the party from 12 MPs back to more than 70 now, and done incredibly well.
Best performance for a third party since 1923.
But I think that's actually proves your point completely. I think Ed Davey completely played the game during the general election campaign. He was literally kayaking around with Sky News journalists.
He's currently trying to get to number one. How is that going, by the way?
Oh, by the way,
how is that
a
doing?
great update on that.
Go on.
The Liberal Democrats said they will release the Nick Clegg "Call Me Maybe" spoof mock-up if it gets to number 1. Do you guys not remember this?
What?
Do you guys not remember this? Oh, back, when was it? 2010 election?
Am I having a fever dream?
No, I think it was a 2010 election. Nick Clegg did a mock-up of Carly Rae Jepsen's "Call Me Maybe." It was pushed under the radar by the Liberal Democrats, is now the stuff of legend.
Oh.
But it's been one of those things that everybody's been like, when are you going to release the video? When are you going to release the video?
Right.
They have said they will release
It's
it.
like
if
Panama
ITV's
Papers or something.
It is the Panama Papers.
Right.
This is very exciting for all Lib Dems and
Right.
all that follow
Yeah,
it.
well,
Honestly,
it doesn't take much to get them excited.
I think listeners will know exactly what I mean.
Okay, well, that's something to look forward to. I mean, it's interesting that we need to move on to the next category, but while we're here...
I haven't given my
Go on.
pitch for Politician of the Year. Morgan McSweeney. He's not an official politician,
that's smart.
but I think, thank you very much. I think behind the scenes, he is basically, he played a huge part in getting Labour to win this general election. I don't know how much of it was kind of game playing 4D chess, or how much of it was, actually, it's sort of a wafer thin majority over the course of hundreds of seats, but it worked, and so I'm giving it to him.
It's interesting that, we've not said, given he's the first Labour Prime Minister in 14 years, and he got a majority that was only slightly smaller than Tony Blair's after the worst election result since 1935 in the previous election, that we haven't said Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I'm giving it to Morgan instead of Keir.
Well,
Sorry,
Keir
Keir.
has Morgan to thank for the election victory. So can they both have a joint victory?
No, there's no. That's very Labour, though. All must have prizes.
always exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Okay, surely mine would be Trump. Surely you've got to have Trump.
Is it a UK or
It's
is the
everywhere.
news agents based?
Look, we're
UK-based awards?
worldwide. Although I have to say we do tend to focus on the United States and the United Kingdom. But hey, worldwide. Right, I'm just going to give it to Trump because it's my one. Worst politician of the year.
Rishi Sunak. He lost the election. He called it at the wrong time. Had a terrible
He hasn't
campaign.
had a great year,
launched it in the pouring rain. He's got to be worst politician of the year.
I can't even really remember him being Prime Minister now.
It's a very long time ago now.
It's hard to remember the first 6 months of the year when it was sort of thinking about these categories.
So what were you doing in February? I don't know.
I have
no
actually
idea.
no idea.
Do you remember what happened in February? The Speaker almost faced a vote of no confidence.
Lindsay, is that this
Hoyle.
year?
That is this year. That's how long
That
this
is
year in
extraordinary.
politics has been.
Lindsay's had a
Over the
bad year.
Gaza
We'll
vote.
put him in the category.
Yeah, I think
he could be worst politician of the year.
Potentially, yeah.
Sorry,
I
Sir
think so.
Lindsay.
Maybe he's the survivor of the year because he's still around
He
and
is still
everybody
there.
forgot about
Gosh,
it.
that's another category you've
still
just
there.
made up.
Right, okay.
Survivor of the year.
Survivor of the year. I like it. If I were going to be really mean, I'd say Rachel Reeves, worst politician of the year.
Really?
In terms of politically, right? I think she's misjudged a lot of things politically. Winter fuel obviously gone down terribly badly. The decision to wait to call a budget gone down badly. The tax rises, national insurance, family farming tax if you're a Conservative. Lots of big decisions that I don't think she's handled politically very well. I don't know how politically savvy she is. And obviously, like we were, been discussing before, there are people who are wondering whether she'll be Chancellor for much longer. I don't think that's like an imminent discussion, but being Chancellor at the end of the Parliament, I think, is unlikely. And it is unlikely. Most people do not stay Chancellor for 5-year term of Parliament, right?
Okay, well, here's mine. Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Joe Biden has gone from a man who looked like he was going to be one of the most consequential presidents of recent decades, to a man who is completely, by giving into his vanity, and it's not just him, it's people around him as well, but by giving into his vanity, in not accepting what he always promised, which was to be a transitional figure, and basically standing down at the latter end of 2023 and allowing the Democrats to have a proper primary process where Harris may well have emerged from it as the nominee, and it might have been a bit messy, but at least she would have had time, or whoever it was would have had time to introduce themselves properly to the public. I mean, I think when we look back now, Harris was basically being asked to do an impossible thing. I mean, like, she was being asked to introduce herself to the country. A vice president who are always famous but unknown. To introduce yourself to the country, develop a policy platform, try and find answers to the questions about, how you differentiate yourself from the Biden, all that sort of stuff in 100 days. To be honest, it's amazing that she did as well as she did.
I don't know. I remember listening to her concession speech and thinking, you don't get it. You do not know why you've lost. There was no sorry. There was no contrition there. She fought a bad campaign. She fought the campaign on the wrong issues, like democracy, abortion. Like, it was never going to be the issues. And all the polls were saying that these issues that she had chosen, that her campaigent had decided to run on, were the wrong ones.
But it was also the Biden's campaign. I mean, she basically inherited the whole Biden campaign infrastructure. And I think that I went to the convention in Chicago, and they were all in this kind of days at the time, all of this kind of like, thank you, Joe, all this sort of like completely saccharine stuff. And of course, it wasn't entirely clear what they were thanking him for, like thanking him for 50 years in the Democratic Party or just off and just getting out of there as quickly as possible. But it was so clear so early on. I mean, you remember then that debate, which is amazing now, even listening back to the clips, you should play the clip. That clip is, of him being utterly bewildered. And it's on the whole Democratic Party as well, because they are, and it's on camera. That's the bit that I think is most on Harris, is that they all knew that he was in no fit state by comparison. It's amazing if you listen back to the clips of him, even in 2020, he's like a completely different man. I mean, it's no surprise, the presidency ages people. And if you're at that age, no surprise at all. But the fact that there was basically a cover-up at the top of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, they shouldn't have let it get to that stage.
They should never.
But also that was part of the problem, wasn't it? That the fact that it looked like a cover-up, then that she was the person that had been handed the crown, and that made it then more difficult to her, for your point as well. She definitely made mistakes. She definitely could have done it better, but she also didn't really have time for any mistakes at all because she was given such a short time frame.
But he has gone from the guy who was the kind of exorciser of Trump, who had defeated him and defeated Trumpism. That was going to be his legacy, to the guy who let it back in. And he's done that through, and his whole policy prospectus and agenda is now imperiled or gone. I mean, that moment when Trump came into the White House, doing the thing that, to be fair, Trump never afforded to Biden after the 2020 election, accepting the result and accepting that there would be a transition. That moment where it almost slipped out of Biden. He was like, well, Mr. President, welcome back. Welcome back.
Yeah. Do you think he knows what he's done now? Do you think he regrets it?
I don't think so. I don't think any of the Democrats quite realise what this shift is happening in American politics, and now they are the anomaly for the last sort of 10 years of American politics. They're going to be, the outlier that 4 years, rather than what is true, the shift to Trumpism in America. Yeah. That's the narrative of where the country's going, right?
Completely. Like, there was after the 2020 election, the narrative was, or there was a question. I remember writing this piece at the time saying, the question is like, who's the blip? Like, who's the blip? Exactly. Who's the aberration?
Now we know who the blip is.
Like, was it Trump? And if he'd been confined to one term, he probably would have been a blip. If they'd beaten him this time, Trumpism, MAGAism, it would have lived on in some way, but it would have been, highly, highly damaged, and Trump wouldn't have come back. Now it's been completely legitimated. As you're saying, Natasha, Biden is the aberration. He's the blip. He's probably the last gasp of something.
Yeah, and he's lost that argument now for arguably a generation.
Yeah, and to answer your point, Aggie, about does he know it? I think, to be honest, Biden, who actually I admire in a lot of ways, he's obviously had an amazing career, but he is clearly a vain old man. And I think my impression is, I remember talking to some Democrats about this afterwards, my impression is that he blames the party. He thinks he could have won. He still thinks, despite the fact they had internal polling after that debate, which showed that Biden would lose like 40 states, like 45 states, Trump would sweep the board. He still believes that if the party had kept around him, rallied around him, that he could have beaten him, because he says, which is a matter of fact, he's the only person who's ever beaten Trump, which is true. But
that's the thing, we'll never know now what could have happened.
We'll never know.
Sliding doors moment, right?
I strongly believe that we do know what would have happened if he had stayed on.
No, so totally, if he'd stayed, if Harris had replaced him at an earlier moment, she'd actually been given a real shot. So Joe Biden is now always going to look back and go, oh, they messed it up for me. But Harris is always going to look back and go, well, if I'd been given that shot earlier, could I have made a real difference?
Do you remember when this was an award show?
Sorry, we've
do you think they do this? Do you think they do this at Golden Globes and the Oscars?
Yeah, they do. They have really long speeches.
They do mess about.
They take all night.
They mess about.
Also, they have drinks as well.
We should have had some. Well, we've got this Harrogate Spring still water here. Yeah, I think no expense spared at the newsagents as ever. Let's do this one quickly then before we go to the break. Political moment of the year.
I have written down Rishi Sunak standing in the rain. But I suppose that was sort of my last answer to the last one. But that one didn't win, so maybe I'm in with a shot for this one. But that moment of him coming out, standing there, that was sort of, you could see the raindrops flicking off his suit jacket, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. The music blaring in the background of Things Can Only Get Better. I quite literally can believe it, and I have never worked out whether it would have been better. Obviously it would have been far better for him to do that inside number 10 if indeed he had to do it at that very moment, which he obviously felt he did. Would it have been better if a spad had run out with an umbrella halfway through?
Why did he not take an umbrella out with him when he went?
Yeah, of course.
Or just attach it to the lectern. I mean, he's little enough. I mean, honestly. I mean, it was the
moment of the year, and I think it was the moment of the year because we were also unprepared for it. Like, there'd been a little bit of rumblings. We'd all heard, oh, maybe this might happen, But actually, you know, that was the best kept secret in Westminster for, I think it was 6 months, really, that Rishi Sunak had decided that the election was going to be in the second half of the year. And he kept it secret from most of Westminster apart from his inner circle. We weren't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't even have blooming trainers on and didn't have a brolly. So, yeah, it was. I think it was the moment of the year.
But apparently his spads basically said, there was another speech that he made in Downing Street, and they'd gone out and it was slightly dribbling, and they'd thought, actually, doesn't it sort of projects that he's this man that can stand in the dribbling rain and looks completely
dribbling
fine.
Is fine, but not bucketing.
And so they basically kind of thought about that moment, thought that worked quite well. I think that was after George Galloway had won that by-election, and then he'd made this speech, and they thought, okay, well, that moment worked really well, so this moment is going to work an absolute treat. And then, of course, he lost the election. I
have 2 moments, again, which are American politics related, because I think they're kind of connected in a way, or at least it's actually how completely askance the American public is with where things were going. Because there's 2 moments. One, of course, is Trump at the debate, and then one at the Republican National Convention where I wasn't at the RNC, I was at the DNC, and the DNC had all of these kind of like top draw celebrities, you know, like all of the kind of like singers and Hollywood celebs and all of this sort of stuff. And to introduce him by contrast, you remember who Trump had?
No.
Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
And he ripped off his shirt.
Yeah.
And you know what? The best thing about those moments, and I bring it up, is because the American public looked at those 2 moments and went, yeah, we'll have a bit more of that.
Yeah, that guy.
Wait, surely not to undermine my first moment, which was an excellent moment, should definitely
No
win.
one remembers it, Aggie. It was on Tuesday that you first started talking about it, so don't worry about it.
The gunshot. When Trump was shot, surely that's the moment of the year. Saturday night, shot.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, great.
Honestly, 3 inches.
Can you revise the award? They did it on the Oscars, didn't they? With old Moonlight and La La Land, so we can just go back and change it.
I change it. Yeah, political moment of the year.
It was an extraordinary moment and probably the defining image of the year. But we're not photojournalists. We're barely journalists at this point. Political moment of the year. So I would say that mine would again win. Another award for the great man, for Hulk. We should have a little break and allow people to turn off, I suppose. We're back in a minute. Right, we're back, and we're going to try and get through these before we end up doing the awards of 2025, which we are shortly about to embark upon.
This is one of my.
There's so much to talk about and so many awards. It's a bit like that point of an award ceremony when they go through all the boring ones really quickly, which are clearly like already pre-recorded, like kind of like sort of foreign language documentary of the year.
Exactly. No one's just waiting to get to the end.
Political book of the year. Now, there can only be one, can't there?
Nadine Dorries.
The plot. The plot to
the downfall.
Why didn't she call it The Plot Thickens? That would have been so good.
So I have a small story. Actually, not really a story. I had to go. We lost our copy of the plot, and I had to go to.
You lost the plot.
I literally lost the plot.
Right, yeah.
We had to go and get a copy from Waterstones the other day. Couldn't find it anywhere. I literally looked in political history, I looked in autobiography, I looked in politics.
Fiction.
Exactly. And then someone joked, maybe it's in the fiction department.
Was it?
It wasn't, no. It was on political hardbacks.
Don't say that because you'll start a meme that they're not stocking it.
No, they are. It does stop. And I literally had to go to the counter. I said, "You must have this book. It is quite new, and I do really need it now." And they were like, "We do have 9 copies of it." But I did eventually find 9 copies. Waterstones, Charing Cross.
Did you? But hasn't quite a lot of it, to be fair to Nads, been vindicated?
It has.
Like a surprising amount of it. Like everyone took the piss, but there's actually a lot of truth in it.
Turns out it was actually not. It should not have been in the fiction section. So, but this is her second book, Downfall, which includes a screenshot photograph. No amount of mind bleach will ever expunge from my brain, and it was a picture of an MP holding their penis. There's also some stories about group sex sessions organised via WhatsApp, and also the king being. Indeed.
So they tell me.
Yes. Lewis, enough.
I'm just going to end it there. So yeah, that's my pitch.
That's your book of the year. All right.
Yeah. I don't think it had the same splash that other books did. I think you can't really argue that any other book apart from Boris Johnson's book really set a bit of a political. I think it did. I think that was the one that sparked even a round of interviews of him defending Partygate, of him defending his record, of him basically saying I did everything right, I've got no regrets, and reigniting that debate. I think it actually also the nail in the coffin for Boris Johnson. I think it showed to me I don't think he wants to come back to British politics. I think he will always feel that there is unfinished business there. with what he went through.
Work.
But I don't think he will. I think we've seen the end of Boris Johnson this year. And I think that is his way of ending the chapter of Boris Johnson in Westminster.
Now, did you mention Freedom by Angela Merkel? The absolute page turner.
Yeah, I've read it cover to cover. I'm sure it's a good one.
Next on my list.
Sure it's a good one. Yeah.
And my nomination, I you know what? Particularly poor form on you, Natasha, given that you're sat in his seat. How could you not have mentioned
the book of
Strangeland by our very own John Soper?
I was actually reading John's other book this year, the American one, number
he
1.
Did smash him out there.
Yeah, that was the first election diary. That was good.
That was good. That. Okay, fine. I have to adjudicate again. Well, I would have to say that mine would win again. John Sopel's Strangeland, available in all good.
This is getting a little bit dictatory, Lewis. If you don't mind me saying.
Dictatory. Well, dictators are back.
Yeah, they are.
Dictators are back in for 2025. Politician to watch for 2025.
Suella Braverman.
Sue.
Robert Jenrick.
No, you can only have one.
Okay, Suella. I think she has the potential to, defect to reform at a moment of maximum danger if she wanted to. The moment she's saying no interest, she could really destabilise Kemi Badenoch should she choose to. And I think there will be people in the Tory party potentially. I don't think she's got a lot of support around her, a lot of friends around her, but I think she could ruffle some feathers if she does make a big shock reform defection.
Is she still a Conservative by the end of 2025?
No.
I think she's flirted with it too much. I think it won't be a big enough shock when she does it. It's just felt her husband's already gone. She's sort of been not really out for ages. It just feels like it's going to happen. I think she should have done it when it would have been a real moment. But now I'm like, when she goes, I'm going to be like, of course, Natasha predicted that at the awards.
Yeah, well, rightly. I mean, that's a great thing about predictions is that if you're right, you talk about it endlessly, and if you're wrong, you just forget about it.
No one ever says it.
No one remembers apart from all the people on Twitter who remind you endlessly.
Aggie? Politician to watch.
Yeah.
Kemi Badenoch. I know she's already Conservative Party leader, but I really don't think we've seen the best. Well, I hope we have not seen the best of her yet.
Well, I suppose if we have, then it must be the stake moment. That's been her abiding contribution to British politics.
Her, actually.
She often feels misrepresented.
She
does. Kemi often feels misrepresented by journalists quoting things that she has exactly said.
I know, it's unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate.
Very upsetting, isn't it?
It's not, yeah, exactly. Quoting things that politicians is out for 2025. Another category we're going to get onto. But what you think that is she still Conservative leader by the end of 2025?
If we have seen the best of her, I suspect she will not be Conservative leader by the end of 2025.
If we've seen the worst of her, she will be.
If we've seen the worst of her, if it's sort of going to get better from here, then absolutely, I think she's got more to play for. But the PM, everyone said when she was running to be party leader, okay, she's a bit unpredictable. Sometimes she says things, then pretends she hasn't. But she is going to be phenomenal at PMQs. And I have watched every single PMQs expecting that moment, and it just hasn't come. But maybe it's about to come. 2025, her year.
And it's not like Keir is a star player.
No, exactly.
The goal is quite wide,
and
right?
He can barely think on his feet in that chamber. And
he always thanks everybody. That's the weird thing. When he says thank you at the end of he's like, thank you. You don't have to thank them.
It's not cool, buddy. Yeah, he seems to be besting her. It's extraordinary.
But look, we haven't talked about any Labour politicians that actually, arguably, as they're the ones in government, they will probably be the ones to watch.
Wait for it.
Have you got a nomination for a Labour politician to watch?
I think it might win, actually.
Oh, I might do.
Politician to watch for 2025. I'm going to say Lee Anderson.
Oh, that's not a Labour politician.
No, but that's a politician to watch for 2025, Lee Anderson.
Okay, what do you think there?
Well, I just think he's going to say some weird shit again, and people should just look out for it. I mean, the most recent thing, of course, the Battle of the Somme.
Yeah, of course.
Inviting everybody to remember his massive contribution during various battles of the First World War.
Totally
I think he genuinely believes, and he is not unusual for a certain section of kind of boomer opinion, who genuinely believe that they did fight the war. They've convinced themselves. Because they feel like they've watched so many films about it, and they genuinely, I think, have convinced themselves.
Oh, I was there. I remember the song.
Yeah, Dam Busters. Yeah, I was there. I was watching all of it. Yeah.
Yet another example of reform playing the game, getting your
yes, we're talking about them.
Carla Denyer, you just need to claim that you were at the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. And honestly, everyone will talk about it. All right. So winner there, Lee Anderson, I think. Okay, here we go. We'll do this one together. Best cabinet minister, worst cabinet minister.
Okay.
Who's had the best and worst start? I suppose you can include the Tories as well. No, let's just keep it to Labour.
Oh, hang on. I've written down a Tory.
What? As a cabinet minister?
Yeah.
No, they've got to be current.
Well, hang on. Wait till you hear my pitch.
All right, go on.
Richard Holden for his chicken run.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tricky Dicky.
And also for being Tory chairman. right at the time of the election? Was he Tory chairman?
For claiming that he was bloody loyal to the North East before taking up the seat in Basildon and Billericay when he was Tory chairman and then winning by 20 votes.
Yeah. Normally when they do the chicken run, they at least say in the same region.
No, just Essex.
Let's listen to Richard, I think, being asked about all this.
It's about trying to find a safer seat, isn't it, somewhere else in the country for yourself, rather than being loyal to the North East?
No, I am bloody loyal to the North East, Tom. I care about this constituency. I fought for them every day since 2019. They've never had a constituency MP who works harder. I'm up there still, even doing this job, every week, working 7 days a week for the people of North West Durham, and I'll continue to do that right to the day of the next general election.
I love that. He's like, there's a reason to do all sorts of things.
Different things. And I've got a reason to not stay.
Bloody
yeah. Anyway, the voters of Basel and Billericay decided to give him a 20 vote majority. They saw that and they were like, yeah, that's our guy. No, that's a good. To be fair, that's a good. So he's the worst and the best. He's the best cabinet minister.
Best cabinet minister. I've actually written Shabana Mahmood because our prisons were quite literally about to collapse. They say that they were about to stop being able to arrest people on the streets, and then by letting out thousands of prisoners, she seems to have stabilised things. Not quite sure I call it best, but I'm sticking with it.
All right, okay.
That's a controversial one there.
Yeah, I've just gone with it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an easy hit. Worst cabinet minister, Louise Haigh. Accidentally found out.
I think she might be the best.
Oh, the best, yeah.
It turns out that she has quite an interesting past.
Yes, a colourful past. Turns out, sort of maybe slightly misrepresenting whether you did or did not lose your phone, pleading guilty to some sort of fraud offence, and then later, the Prime Minister having to basically say, I didn't quite know the full story.
And she called for a boycott of P&O ferries, which is an interesting move as Transport Secretary.
Interesting move just before they came to the UK to announce some more investment at the Prime Minister's Investment Summit.
She'll be back.
Maybe. But look, one of Keir Starmer's only cabinet resignation / quitting / being forced out this year. Is that a good thing? 6 months in, we've only had one resignation.
And the best? Oh, don't be so cynical, Natasha. Honestly,
I've left it blank.
You know what? This is why people don't like journalists. They think we're a cynical.
I'll think a bit harder.
Frothing, nasty bunch of and they're right.
Best cabinet minister. I mean, Angela Rayner's had a pretty good couple of months, hasn't she? Planning. She's got lots of stuff done. Even though she's been, everybody said, she's going to get sidelined by Keir Starmer. Actually, she's getting quite a lot done. Yeah. Forcing through planning reforms, having some fights with the Treasury, seemingly winning.
All right, Lewis, go on.
What about best is that, what about Darren Jones? Because of all of these weird sort of Stan accounts that there are online about him.
He's very popular.
Yeah.
And he just talks like a normal person. People do get that. Yeah, most of the time. I think it's obviously slightly more so before he actually became Chief Secretary. And since in government has had to sort of say a lot less. But no, I think he's a normal guy.
I don't know about the Stan accounts and would like to know about those, please.
Yeah, no, there were
what's coming up in your feed?
There's basically there's a load of Stan accounts that basically Darren, he's amazing, he's so handsome, should be the next Labour Party leader. Have you not seen this stuff?
No.
The algorithm is very interesting, isn't it?
It wants.
The algorithm is very interesting. Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Cabinet minister. And that is a big claim. Just because he's got a few Stan accounts to call him the best cabinet minister. But okay.
I was very, very influenced by the sort of online world. I'm going to say Wes as the worst cabinet minister.
Why?
Don't know. I think he's just getting a bit ahead of himself, really. Wes. This is all just part of also of this sort of ongoing thing that whenever we see each other, we just insult each other quite heavily.
Oh dear.
So,
well, he can take it.
He loves it. He had to go all of his other his cabinet colleagues at the Spectator.
Exactly, but it's all a joke. It was all a joke. But equally, he's secured record-breaking investment in the NHS. He'll have a 10-year plan.
I'll tell you why it worse when he came out against assisted dying. When, as health secretary, he really ought not to have done. He should have stayed neutral.
I think he does regret that. I think he privately thinks that he shouldn't have maybe lent the boot in quite so.
I don't think he did himself that many favours doing that.
No,
I think he a bit of overreach.
I think it was a bit of overreach. I think it was genuinely quite not realising the strength of feeling that MPs had on them.
Mind you, his attempts to just keep on side of the PLP are quite something. I was talking to an MP not long ago who was saying that Wes is the only cabinet minister whose team will send you a little note. If you ask him a question, health questions or whatever, they'll send you a little note saying thanks so much.
That's good, keeping the team on side.
No, absolutely.
As they should be.
Sharp politics.
Thinking about what happens if Keir Starmer falls. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So best cabinet minister obviously has to go to Darren Jones for all those fantastic Stan accounts. And worst cabinet minister, well, you know what? Let's give it to all of our To prove how cynical we are, we'll give them a joint award to the three that we've recommended.
You said we couldn't do that.
Well, you know what? It turns out that the rules for this are entirely arbitrary and made up. So there we go.
Hey?
Finally, what's in and what is out for 2025?
What's in?
This review.
These
awards.
This review.
Yeah.
Never
out.
again. No, what's in? Nepotism, because there are...
Well, to be fair, that's never been out, has it? It's always been in this bloody country.
Especially in 2020.
Disgusting, class-ridden country. It's always been in.
Because of all the people, new MPs, new PPS's ministers who are related to the new Labour lot. It's absolutely extraordinary. They're married to them. They're the children of them. We've got Hamish Faulkner, whose dad is Charlie Faulkner.
Liam Conlon,
Sue Gray.
Not been a great year for the Gray-Conlon household, of course, so we can't be too mean to them.
Morgan McSweeney's wife is PPS.
Of course. It's true. So it turns out they're true. They don't kiss Tories. They only kiss each other. The T-shirt is spot on.
Also out, obviously, Tories. They've gone. They're out.
No, but have you not heard? There's a petition. There's going to be
a new general election.
Finished.
There's also a petition to change the VAT on private schools back again. So good luck there, guys.
Yeah.
My out is betting.
Betting is definitely
definitely out. Okay, what's in?
Betting is
in.
Come on.
Nepotism, out. Betting.
Yeah,
okay.
Betting is out.
You really can't bet anymore. It's sort of really ruined the game.
Do not bet on. I mean, that really was kind of 2024 reaching its apogee, wasn't it?
When we found out that Labour candidate had bet against himself to win.
And then won.
Sunak's team betting on the election.
That feels like years ago.
It was totally last days of Rome stuff, that was.
What about in beautiful speeches in the House of Commons? Because the sort of quality of the assisted dying speeches was really high on both sides. That's my positive.
What a lovely moment
nice.
on which to end.
Huh.
A lovely moment of rare positivity from this show, from the two of you, from this station, and we can leave it at that.
But sorry, who wins?
Who wins? We all win. Everyone has prizes. Everyone has. You win because you actually bothered to come up with some, and I win all of the others. Thank you both for coming in. Thank you for being part of the News Agents family. Come back next year.
Yes, please.
Fine. See you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, a huge thanks to Aggie and Tasha there, with more to come from them in the new year, I am sure. And that is it from all of us. Do remember, like I said, to buy your tickets for our live shows in Birmingham, Edinburgh and Manchester via Global Player. And if you're sat there thinking, how can I possibly go 2 whole weeks without my daily diet of news and medium quality repartee? Then fear not, because we have some special content coming up for you. Starting on Christmas Eve and running into the early new year, we will be running a special series of what if episodes, the news that wasn't, in a way. John, Emily and me dissecting your counterfactuals, the forks in the road, moments of politics and history that nearly were, how things might have been different. As I say, first one on Christmas Eve and more dropping into your feeds in the days after that. So, apart from that, that is it. We all got through 2024 without being cancelled. All that's left to do is to thank our incredible production team on the show: Natalie Inn, Shane Fenley, Michaela Walters, Arvin Badawell, Rory Simon, our executive producer Louis Dagenhart, and our editor Tom Hughes. This show is what it is thanks to them, so one way or another, they're responsible. And of course, our biggest thanks to you, our listeners and viewers. We so value that you choose to spend time with us for however long you do. It's Christmas, so let's be schmaltzy. It is a complete privilege. We will be back, like St. Nick himself, on Christmas Eve. From all of us, have a wonderful Christmas, and if it's a tough time of year for you, a peaceful one. See you in 2025.
The News Agents. This is a Global Player original podcast.